Hey guys, in today's Book to Screen, I'm going to be talking about Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, based off of the book by Seth Grahame-Smith, starring Lily James, Sam Riley, Douglas Booth, and Matt Smith. So before I get going on my thoughts on the movie adaptation of Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, there will be no spoilers in this video, so you can continue to watch freely. Just to give you guys a quick plot synopsis of Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, I think that's self-explanatory. It's Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen with zombies. Literally. I mean, there's not much else to it. Just take what you know about Pride and Prejudice, which is about Elizabeth Bennet and her conflict with the annoying Mr. Darcy, and just throw in the zombies, and the two of them having to learn to get over their differences in order to fight the zombie apocalypse. I really enjoy the book version of Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I mean, it is literally just Jane Austen's work and Seth Grahame-Smith just going through and inserting scenes and inserting words to change up the narrative a bit. And I really think that this movie adaptation did a really wonderful job with the material, if not actually enhanced the material in some ways. Because like I just said, the book is just straight up Jane Austen, Seth Grahame-Smith just going in the margins and fixing and adding a few things. So yeah, the movie definitely enhances upon that, creates a bit more story, definitely adds a lot more zombie gore and action. If you are a fan of Seth Grahame-Smith's Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and then you went to see the movie and you were disappointed in the movie, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with this adaptation, because I think it works and it fixes certain things and makes the plot a lot more interesting. So if you're basing your opinions off of something like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, I think try and give Pride and Prejudice and Zombies a chance, because I think it succeeds, whereas Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter kind of strayed quite immensely. The overall look of the film is very well done, very atmospheric. I love the whole thing about the book and even the movie. In some ways it's a parody of historical period dramas. You know, me being someone, I love watching a good BBC adaptation, you know, a good BBC film, whatever. And yeah, a lot of times those tend to be historical dramas, a lot of times Jane Austen related, and yeah, I loved how in some ways the book and this movie adaptation are a parody in some ways of those BBC period dramas, kind of poking fun at those things, poking fun at the Regency era. Like I said, I think the film is visually pleasing. I do think sometimes the costuming is a bit much. The costuming, it's like they updated the costuming to make it look hip and sexy. The costuming is definitely not Regency period appropriate, I don't think, but it's fairly close. And I think the zombie effects are really well done too. Right on up there with Walking Dead, I suppose, you know, in terms of the visual look of the zombies, and they're creepy and nasty and gross looking. I also really loved the casting for this movie. Years ago, there was casting going around, and the casting was horrible. They had like a bunch of Americans in these roles, and I was just not on board with the original casting choices. And then finally they came back around to this movie, recasted a bunch of parts. Yeah, we got Lily James as Elizabeth Bennet, which is just perfect, I think. I really bought Lily James as Elizabeth Bennet. And more than just buying her as Elizabeth Bennet, I bought her as a really kick-ass version of Elizabeth Bennet. And then Sam Riley as Mr. Darcy, I think he was okay. He's probably definitely not the best Mr. Darcy, but I think he worked, you know. And Sam Riley and Lily James, I think they definitely had some good chemistry with one another. I bought that back and forth relationship between them. Let's see, who else was in this movie? I also really loved Douglas Booth as Mr. Bingley. That was just perfect right there. I loved Jack Huston, is that his name? Jack Huston as Wickham. That was also really great. And then we got some Game of Thrones people in there. We got Charles Dance and Lena Headey, and they were great. They didn't have much to provide to the story, but they were still fine for what they were. But I tell you what, you guys, the standout performance for me was probably Matt Smith as Mr. Collins. Matt Smith, you know, I know him from Doctor Who. I think most of us know him from Doctor Who. This was definitely a very different role for him. Super funny and hilarious. He was playing someone really egotistical and full of himself, you know. Not aware that everyone around him hates him. Anytime Matt Smith was on the screen, he definitely stole every scene. I always had a smile on my face every time he was on screen. I guess some disappointment in the casting. Well, maybe not necessarily the casting, but just the script, you know. The Bennet Sisters. That's a big thing about the book. You know, just Jane Austen's regular book. I mean, even in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, the book, the relationship between the sisters is still pretty key in that, even. But in the movie, the Bennet sister relationship is kind of non-existent. I mean, even Elizabeth and Jane are a big core of the story. And Jane, I don't know. She just really didn't provide anything to the story sometimes. I felt like they didn't use her. And the acting was a little off for me too. I'm not even sure who was playing Jane, but I didn't really like her acting that much. Because a lot of times it kind of just sounded like she was reading off the script. And then, yeah, you have the other Bennet sisters like Mary and Kitty and Lydia. Lydia, especially. Lydia is a vital character for plot purposes. And when you kind of do get to those big plot moments regarding Lydia, it's like, who? You know, I mean, if you're a reader of Pride and Prejudice, you know who Lydia is, you know where things are going, but I think if you're someone who has not read Pride and Prejudice and then you go to this movie, I think Lydia's character is going to be kind of confusing for you because it's a big plot element that happens that comes out of nowhere. So yeah, unfortunately, the Bennet sisters, underused, not really good actresses in my opinion, but not necessarily maybe their fault. I'm going to blame a lot of that on the script writing and the director for not using them. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of all I have to say about the movie adaptation of Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. In general, I did really like it. I liked the improvements that it made from the book, the extra additions, the added story, extra zombie stuff. The movie is definitely for a very specific demographic. If you are someone who loves horror, you're not going to like this movie. This is not a horror movie. This movie is definitely for people who love Pride and Prejudice and who kind of love that twist of the zombies. You know, like I said, this is a big parody of like BBC period dramas, and so that is kind of the target demographic in my opinion. Yeah, if you're someone who likes The Ring or the Saw movies or something like that, you know, big huge creepy movies, yeah, this is not it. This is not your typical zombie movie at all. So you're going to be very, very disappointed. And I think that's why this movie didn't do very well, because it is such a niche audience, you know. There's really only a very small percentage of people who would enjoy this movie. So yeah, if you're one of those people, you'll probably really enjoy this, because I was pleasantly surprised how it turned out. It's not perfect. It's like a good bad movie, you know what I mean? It's kind of a bad movie but good at the same time, because you're still getting the satisfaction of entertainment, you know, and good looking people and a great story. So yeah, definitely by no means a perfect movie, but still fun for what it was, and I'm just glad to finally see an adaptation of this. So yeah, you guys, have you seen Pride and Prejudice and Zombies? Do you plan on watching it? Have you read the book? And what's your favorite adaptation of Pride and Prejudice? Let's discuss. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you liked this book to screen, you may like these other book to screens. Bye guys.